a couple of months ago, I did a radio show. Some of you folks here in LA may know this. It's a show called Go Fact Yourself, a PBS show called Go Fact Yourself, on which I was a guest with Jennifer Tilly. And I asked Jennifer if she would come out and do a thing with her film Bound. And we pitched that, and the Cinematheque was all into it. And then Grant Moniger, the programmer here, was so cool. He said, well, why don't we do like 4 neo-noir films and see what we can make of that, all with female protagonists in keeping with the theme of this year's festival. So we are showing The Last Seduction tomorrow. Unfortunately, Linda Fiorentino will not be here, but we do have John Dahl coming. He only directed it, and he will be here to talk about that with me. And then Sunday we're showing The Grifters, and Annette Bening will be here in conversation with that. So very, very excited about that. Okay. Now, the film that you're about to see, I'm not even going to ask how many people have seen this movie before, because if you said, yeah, I have, I know you're lying. Because I had not even seen this film before I programmed it to show it up in Oakland at the Noir City Festival in January. I just knew that if Helen Walker is in it and Mickey Rooney directed it, we need to see this movie. I had no idea if there was any noir credibility to this film whatsoever. But, you know, sometimes you just take the chance and you roll the dice, and it's pretty damn amusing. So here are the stories I want to tell you about this film. I'm going to get my Mickey Rooney story out of the way really quick. I only met him once. It was at the TCM Classic Film Festival, and it was opening night, and I was walking down a staircase, and Mickey Rooney was at the bottom of the stairs. And I said, oh my God, I'm going to meet Mickey Rooney like halfway on the stairs at the landing. Like, this guy is a legend. You know, and he's coming up, and he was old, and he's coming up those stairs, man, he's trucking, and I'm heading down, and we got halfway, and I said, Mr. Rooney, and he looked at me and he said, get the fuck out of my way. That was my interaction with Mickey Rooney. But here's the punchline to that story. Is that 2 years later, Mickey Rooney died, and they did a tribute to him at the TCM Classic Film Festival, and they asked me if I would host his memorial screening. So see, Mickey, you gotta be nice to people on the way up the stairs, because they may just be hosting your memorial screening at the TCM Classic Film Festival, which I did. I had to read his poetry, his late-in-life poetry. Mick, you're a hell of an entertainer. You are not a poet. So anyway, that's my Mickey Rooney story.
That's funny.
The reason I wanted to show this film and include it in this festival is because of Helen Walker, who is one of the actresses that I profile in the new edition of Dark City Dames. I did not, of course, get to interview her for the film because she was long gone. And I'm sure there are hardcore movie fans in the audience who know well about Helen Walker's brief career. She is in one of my all-time favorite movies, Nightmare Alley. She plays Dr. Lilith Ritter, who's one of the great villains in noir history. But her backstory is kind of tragic because she arrived in Hollywood. She wasn't sure she wanted to be an actress, but she immediately, the very first movie she made was at Paramount with Alan Ladd. She co-starred with Alan Ladd. And like hit the deck running and was like off to the races. She had such incredible comedic timing. She was so attractive, she could do anything. And it seemed like the sky was the limit. But she was also a very avuncular a party girl. I don't want to have a negative connotation to that, but she did a lot of charity work during the war and loved being a movie star. And then she had a very tragic incident when she was driving on New Year's Eve from Palm Springs back to LA, and she picked up a couple of soldiers who were hitchhiking, and they were in a very, very serious car accident in which one of these guys died, and she was charged with manslaughter, and there was all kinds of disgrace involved in this because it was alleged that she was drunk when she was driving the car. And this pretty much didn't kill her career, but it seriously dented her career. So in 1951, when she made this film, it was actually kind of courageous of Columbia Pictures and Mickey Rooney to cast her in this movie, because the big studios just were not doing it at the time. I'm not going to fill in the rest of the Helen Walker story, but she is terrific in this movie. Here is the story that I really want to tell you about. My True Story is a magazine, and they entered into an agreement with Columbia to do a series of films tied into My True Story. The publisher of My True Story was a man named Bernard McFadden. Not Bernard McFadden, Bernard McFadden. Because when he was a young boy in the late 1800s, he decided that it was better if you dropped the D because it sounded like a roaring lion. Bernard McFadden. He changed the spelling of the last name McFadden. This guy would become a publishing titan in America. He was a health fanatic. He published all of these books and magazines about popular health and physical fitness and physical culture. He was totally, this guy would have like a total TikTok channel or something today, because he was against white bread. He became a vegetarian. He had all these health things that are now so common. He was promoting these in the 1900s, early 1900s. And he ended up publishing all these magazines, and then became the publisher of Sport Magazine. Photo Play Magazine was Bernard McFadden. He published that. All of this stuff. Then he became RFK Jr. Seriously. He was like, don't go to physicians. Don't go to doctors. They don't know what they're talking about. And he like totally lost his freaking mind at a certain point. So it was either disappear or become the head of Health and Human Services in the United States. And so, but it was fascinating. One of the last things he did, he died in 1956, was to enter into this agreement to have My True Story, which was a magazine that grew out of all of his health magazines, because people would write in and say, well, here's my true story about how I got my life back together. And so he turned it into a magazine. And the movie that you're about to see is based on one of the stories that appeared in My True Story magazine about an ex-con who gets suckered into this thing, and it's nuts. It's 61 minutes of nuttiness, okay? It also is notable because it is the screen debut of Aldo Ray, the actor Aldo Ray, who was billed as Aldo. It looks like Aldo Dare, D-A-R-E, but it's DeRay, right? You know, Eric DeRay, who's his son, who played Leo on Twin Peaks. So this is Aldo Ray's screen debut. The movie is nuts. Elizabeth Risden, you probably know her, British character actress. This is one of the biggest roles she ever got in Hollywood. And it's really fun. I'm happy to say it's a very, very fun movie. So when you go home tonight, your homework assignment is look up Bernard McFadden and just read this guy's whole life story. It'll take you 10 minutes. It's mind-boggling. Now, here it is. Helen Walker, Mickey Rooney's only solo directing credit. My True Story.